Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So here I am in London in Kilburn, and behind me is a blue plaque on the flat where Lord Learie Constantine lived for the last 7 years of his life. So Learie Constantine was born in Trinidad. That's a Caribbean island. At that time it was a British colony. He did reasonably well at school, but was more renowned as a cricketer. It was only later on that he shone academically, so he's a late developer. But first of all known as a sportsman, and cricket was the most popular sport in the West Indies by far. Partly it was so hot, the climate wasn't that suitable for football, had to be running for 90 minutes. Cricket, there are a few seconds of action, then getting back into position. So a sort of cricket factotum when it came to fielding, bowling, batting. It was good at all of them. Some people are just renowned in one sector of the game, not that I'm a cricket fan at all. So he certainly had the fine motor skills, the athleticism. He was always very lissom. Anyway, then he went in for the law, and he qualified as a solicitor, and he later moved to the United Kingdom in the 1930s. So remember, the British Empire being very much extant at the time, people could move anywhere within the empire. He was black as well, so he was the only second black person to be ennobled in the UK. So he was here in the Second World War and was a High Commissioner for the British West Indies, more or less ambassador of that section of the empire here in the UK. So the black community was tiny, and there was a lot of racialism then, a lot of ignorant racialism. I don't think it's quite so vicious as in people wanting to kill all black people, but some people were just very patronising or staggeringly ignorant, really whites who knew nothing about black people, or just believed this racist gollywog stereotype and things like that. So more black people moved here during the war, volunteering for the Royal Air Force and other sections of the British Armed Forces, also to work in factories. There's a real labour shortage. But some black people from the Caribbean who were risking their lives here in the UK were very unfairly treated, and racial discrimination was entirely lawful. If you wanted to refuse a black person a place to stay, to serve them a meal, there was no law against that. And indeed there was a case about this when Learie Constantine himself had booked a room in a hotel. He showed up and they refused to let him stay there, and they were frank, it was on the grounds of his race. So it went to the court, and the judge said, although he was deeply sympathetic to Mr. Constantine, as he then was, there was no law against doing that. So the judge wasn't simply going to invent a law because he felt sorry for someone who'd been so unfairly treated. But perhaps the law should have been a bit more creative, seen this as a breach of contract or something. He qualified as a barrister, Learie Constantine. He didn't have a degree, and you weren't actually required to have a degree to qualify as a barrister to the 1970s, although by then virtually all those being called to the bar had degrees. So then he was commissioner as well in the first years of the independence of some of these West Indian countries. Remember, there was very briefly the West Indies Federation, as in the quondam British colonies in the Caribbean banded together to try and form a nation, but it didn't really last. Kingston, Jamaica was going to be the capital, a bit of rivalry between Trinidad and Tobago, which had a population only slightly smaller than that of Trinidad and Tobago, but the Bahamas was still a British colony until 1975, but they all went their own way. They couldn't quite agree on things. The idea with these people, they almost all were of the same race, having originated in Africa in the 17th century. They all spoke the same language, they were all the same religious denomination, almost all of them Protestant Christians, and had a similar culture and historical experience and so forth. And there were these great numbers, but it wasn't to be. But he spoke up against racist discrimination against the black community here. Remember, the black community was much, much smaller in the old days than it is now. And it was in London and Birmingham, that's about it. There were very, very few of African stock outside the major conurbations. So some people said he sort of confused his role with an ambassador with being an advocate of the rights of black people in the UK, or mostly of Caribbean origin. Not many people were directly coming from Africa at that stage. So was he intervening in domestic politics? If so, perhaps it was right to do so because he was speaking up for those who were very unfairly treated. He had close links to the Labour Party. The Labour Party, of course, inspired daughter parties in the Caribbean, and the Labour Party passed the first Race Relations Act, outlawing discrimination against people on the basis of race. So he died in 1971. This plaque was unveiled some years ago. There's also a plaque to him where he lived in Kensington. So he played cricket for the West Indies. So the only way that the West Indies Federation survived is in that cricket team. And the only other black person to be made a peer before him was Lord Pitts, who was a doctor who used to practice in the Brixton area. So Brixton was the real centre of the black community in the UK at that time. Anyway, that's enough from me, so please donate to me on PayPal, and follow me, subscribe and all the rest of it. Okay, toodaloo everyone.